here for the very first time with the How Long to Beat quiz daily challenge thing, whose official name I am not 100% sure of. How long to beat the game. It says there at the top of the browser. Would you look at that? Now this is the point where a normal person would restart the intro and just say that normally, but I am a rebel. I'm a cool, cute little rebel who doesn't do things by the rules. Yeah? I don't think the yeah was necessary. Anyway, How Long to Beat is a site where people enter how long it took them to beat games, and so you can use it to get an estimate of how long it's going to take you to beat a game if you are, for example, a Let's Player, and that kind of information is important to you. Naturally, the data is somewhat skewed because people are only likely to enter how long it took them to beat something if they are not ashamed of it. So I think they tend to lowball the hours a little bit. For instance, to 100% Baba Is You supposedly takes 46 and a half hours, which we've already crossed, I'm pretty sure. And we're not exactly close. And apparently it only takes 33 and a half hours to beat Danganronpa 2, which I did not find. But the estimates give you a good rough idea. They tend to, I would say. I would say 26 and a half hours is a pretty reasonable time to beat Ocarina for even your average person who's not played it before. In defense of the Danganronpa one, obviously if you're not reading the text aloud, it goes a lot faster. Anyway, the point is, this website has a massive database full of games and people have entered their times for most, if not all of them. Most of them. There are some that don't have times. And so they have a little quiz thing where you guess how many hours the average is for main story, main plus sides, and completionist. User rating, I think, is just how much people liked the game. I don't think it's about like how many people completed or anything like that. So yeah, I thought we'd play a few rounds and see how accurately I can guess, because I don't know all of the games in this planet, obviously. In this planet. So yeah, I thought we'd give it a few rounds and see how accurately I could guess them. They score you based on your accuracy with these metrics here. So I'll start with the daily one and then we'll pop to some random challenges and give it some welly, shall we? So, Cook Serve Delicious puzzle simulation. I'm guessing it's something kind of like Overcooked. It's like a cooking simulator thing where you make the thing and then you bring it to the tables and you try and run a restaurant. So the main story is something like that. It's probably like you go through a certain levels, the recipes get more complicated and maybe you get more customers at a time and stuff. It seems like the kind of thing you could probably spend about 8 hours on, I would say. And then main plus sides, I'm guessing in this case would sort of mean something along the side dishes, I guess could be. No, but I'm joking. Probably means something more like doing optional missions you don't have to, which could probably add a good 2 or 3 hours. Let's call it 2. We'll say it would add to 10. And completionist is probably like getting the best rank on every mission, which probably for most people would take a little longer. I would say perhaps even double the time of the original, but I'll go 15 hours, just guessing here. For all I know, this is a super long story-based game that is like 90 hours. And it looks like the kind of thing that would have some fans, but not be regarded as like absolutely show-stopping. So I would probably put it around a 76 as a guess for how people feel about it. Let's see how close I was there. Okay, so I was way off on the times. It's about 2 or 3 times the length of time it would take to beat the game on every category I had there. I was most off on sides. The sides added a heck of a lot to it. But I was accurate enough about the user rating, which is fairly likable, but clearly not, a showstopper, legendary must play. Moving on to the second daily round, Gothic 3. Now, I've heard that the Gothic games are supposed to be quite difficult, at least the early ones. And they're like lengthy medieval action RPG kind of things. So I think it's probably fair to imagine a minimum of 20 hours to beat the main story. But since I've heard they're pretty difficult, I'll even bump it up a little more and say 28 hours for main story. And if it's a medieval RPG with lots of optional stuff, probably the sides bump it up to like a whole bunch more, like 47. And if you're really getting everything, it's probably more like 75. I may be highballing it a bit here, but I'm feeling like offsetting my balance from that, since I lowballed the heck out of the last one. Maybe it's Gothic 3 by that time they had chilled out a bit, but I heard that the earlier Gothic games were supposed to be quite difficult. Now, as for how well-liked they are, I don't know, I kind of had the sense they were a bit cult classic-y rather than crowd-pleasing because of their enormous difficulty, for one thing. But I kind of don't get the sense they'd be any lower than an 80 if they made it as far as Gothic 3, you feel me? So let's call it like an 82, where like, it's pretty good, but the difficulty balancing throws a lot of people off, so they don't like it, like, to the point of like a 95, huh? Let's try that. Okay, so I was getting closer on the hours. I still way lowballed it, apparently. But percentage-wise, they've given me a higher ranking here. But I actually way highballed the user rating. It is apparently liked less than Cook Serve Delicious, or whatever it was called that we just had. Very fascinating indeed. Now, so I've played this little like quiz challenge once or twice on my own beforehand, just to see how it worked and stuff, like some months back. And I performed like slightly better than I did now, but this is somewhat in keeping with my track record with this game so far, is that I'm not excellent at it, but it is a lot of fun. So moving on to the final round of the daily challenge, Flynn, Son of Crimson. No idea, but it's like an action-adventure game. It has the feel of indie, so that might impact our perception of the length. We're riding some kind of like giant chihuahua. It has very much like the feel of a long JRPG. It was released in 2021, although the genre is listed as action-adventure, so this is like a 3D thing. When I said action RPG, I was picturing like something 2D, kind of like Nine Souls or Dead Cells or something like that. Anyway, but the indie look of it and the idea that it's action-adventure and possibly 3D from what I'm looking at here. Maybe, I guess I don't know that, but it all says to me it's not going to be like more than 40 hours, and I would say probably no more than 30. So I would say... it could even be shorter, it could be like 5, but I feel like 25 is a reasonably safe bet. I wouldn't say it looks like the kind of game that has a lot of, if it's action-adventure rather than like platform or something, it has a lot of like optional collectibles, so maybe main plus sides is more like that, and completionist more like that, something like this. And again, it looks like the sort of thing that has a few ardent followers, so I'm guessing like mid-70s as far as reception. I might even just go smack dab in the middle in 75. But possibly it could be the sort of thing that's like a really, really good indie gem that not a lot of people played. And so like the people who have played it are like 95 easy. But I think like this is a safe enough bet. Okay, so way overestimated the time. I was closer when I said it could even be around 5 hours in length. So I got 0 points across the board for the time ranking, but I was pretty close on the user ranking. So as far as the daily challenge, this was a pretty miserably poor... I don't know what's up with the GIF that they choose, but it feels appropriate. Miserably poor score. But the global average was 141 on this challenge, so I wasn't like dreadfully far off the average. I mean, I didn't do well by any stretch here. But let's play some random rounds and see how well I do, shall we? Hydrophobia Prophecy has very much the sound of, I was gonna even say like earlier than 2011, like 2005. Now that tech is really starting to build up and we can make some really realistic looking things, let's make a super cinematic game. And it was like one game that some small developer poured their everything into, and it came out to be a really interesting niche thing, but that didn't really spawn any kind of long series. And to that end, for 2011, I would say these visuals look like they're going for a pretty realistic style. I probably spent a lot of time on that. Probably didn't have a lot of time to spend on fleshing out the game's maps or anything, or perhaps I aimed for a smaller, more cinematic scope. So I would say it looks like this is the sort of game I would wager is a sort of tight-knit cinematic experience with a few very unique levels that you're beating in like 7 hours. I feel comfortable saying like that. Something like Chronicles of Riddick, which I haven't played, but that's the kind of vibe it gives off. And it doesn't seem like there would be a lot of side content in that sense. Maybe a few collectibles per stage. So main plus sides is probably like 8, and completion is like 11. And once again, I know it feels bad to like mostly be going in the 70s all day today, but this has the feel of something that would be like a 77. Like, if you played it, you probably liked it, but then didn't think about it loads after, and maybe it didn't like leave a huge impression. It had a handful of flaws that held it back, or just wasn't very ambitious to begin with, or so that as people might think. There are power-ups you can have here, but I don't know. I prefer the pure guessing experience myself. The score is really tertiary here. There's the experience first, the video second, and then the score is kind of like, we can worry about that later. I feel fairly comfortable with this. I think it could even be a little shorter or a little longer. I doubt it's any longer than 15 hours based on what I'm looking at here. I haven't heard of any of these games yet, I don't think so, by the way. Could be a little shorter, could be a little longer. I doubt it's fewer than 4 hours. I doubt it's more than 15. So I feel comfortable enough with this guess here. Yeah, there you go. It is about 4 hours long, so that was not a bad verbal shout there, but I was thinking closer to 7. So not our most awful guess about the time so far, but probably our worst guess about the user rating. Apparently it was very much not liked, which I probably should have clocked since I haven't really heard of it. But there were a number of games that came out that were like B games that kind of like, it wasn't that they had nothing going for them, but they just didn't really have much of a ground to release on, and they didn't do anything like so uniquely or well as to gain purchase in the gaming landscape or whatever. It's particularly in like the 2004 to like 2012 were a lot of those, as I felt like. Another pretty poorly played round. I was definitely doing better than this when I last attempted this, although I did get a few more games that I actually knew about. So Space Marine Warhammer 40,000 I've heard of. It's a shooter with like roots in like fantasy and stuff. I mean, Warhammer. As for how long it is, I actually don't really have a good sense. I kind of had the feel that the answer was long. Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2011. I kind of had the sense that there were like numerous campaigns he went through, so I don't know whether that would be counted under main story or main plus sides. But I've heard they're not like short, so I feel like probably 24 hours for main campaign, and then 20 plus sides is probably like goes up by a good bit because there are extra campaigns or something, and completionist for all achievements is like a touch more than that. That feels like vaguely an appropriate estimate, but I don't really have a strong sense of it at all. Because some shooters are like quite quick to get through. Something like GoldenEye or Uncharted or Call of Duty, the campaigns don't last much more than like 8 hours, right? But then there are some that are really, really, really long because they want to test you in a million different scenarios. As for the user rating, I don't actually have a good sense of how well liked this one is. I feel like the series Warhammer is pretty well liked. It's lasted a very long time and has roots in, you know, tabletop games as well as video games, so it's like a big franchise. As for this particular game, whether it was well liked, I sort of had the sense that I'd heard it was a bit grindy and long, but not that it played poorly. So again, I hate doing this, but it would probably put it closer to like a late 70, but then it's got a lot of star power, I suppose, so maybe it could even achieve like an 84 or something like that, like a low to mid 80. I feel like 84 is not a bad... 83, because that level of precision will matter when I hit submit and find out I'm 20% off, shall I? But this feels like a reasonable enough set of guesses. Actually, you know what? The completionist should probably go up a little more from the main plus sides. I'm feeling like that. Usually, you don't see the completionist go up by a smaller amount than the main to sides jump. So let's try that. Oh god, it's crazy short. I was way, 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 way off. God damn. I guess it's because of Warhammer 40k I sort of associate with like that kind of World of Warcraft large fantastical world building kind of series, so I just expected it would be long, but I was hugely off on that. And not doing too well with the user rating either. It was not nearly as well liked as I had imagined. Man, I am getting decimated today. Oh, The Evil Within, a game I've heard of. There we go. And played like 20 minutes of. I don't think this game is especially long, right? Possibly even fewer than 10 hours, but I wouldn't go much fewer. Like 9 or 10 is probably a thing. I'll just give it 10 to be safe. As far as main plus sides, I didn't get the sense it was something that had a lot of like optional content, unless we're counting like the DLC and stuff. But it's this like fairly story-driven, atmospheric, shootery, survival-y thing, right? Survival horror thing. So you can only keep that kind of prolonged tension up for so long before you get bored of it, right? Or like you become accustomed to it. So like you can't make a survival horror game that long. And the side content would kind of distract somewhat from the horror and survival and story you're trying to tell. So I doubt there's like too much, maybe some optional combat scenarios and possibly if we're counting the DLC a little more. I would go main plus sides probably like 12 and then completionist if you're going for like play again in the hard mode and get collectibles like 18. Evil Within is pretty well liked though, right? I don't think it's as far as like in the 90s, but I doubt it's lower than a 75. I think people think this game is pretty good. And from what little I played of it, I liked it well enough. So I think a low 80 is probably fair, like an 82 to an 85. But I keep highballing these things, so I'm gonna leave it a little lower just in case it is close to the 70s, so I don't get totally butchered here. But I feel like somewhat confident in this. You know, actually, I'm just gonna bring this down to 9. It can't be too long, right? Can't be too long. It could even be as low as like 5 or something. But I had the sense if it's survival horror, you can't have it be an hour because you need the survival aspect to have time to take shape. It doesn't matter if you run out of resources in the first hour of the game if the game's only an hour long, you feel me? So like if it's a survival horror game where you're doing some management of your ammo and health and whatever, there's gotta be like a bit of stretched out time for that to matter. But it can't be so long because you're trying to keep it the horror and atmospheric. So you need it to sort of come and go in a way that never lets you get used to it. So I feel like 9 hours is not a bad shout. Ooh, okay. Probably one of the better scorings of this day I've gotten so far, but not great. It was definitely a little longer than I had imagined. Especially the completionist. Apparently, I guess, well, I did even say myself, possibly completionist is counting like you beat it on hard and you unlock super hard and you have to go through the game again, which should have doubled the playtime, really. I should have imagined that. So it's probably something like that. Even still, though, percentage-wise, as you get into bigger numbers, you don't have to be quite as precise because of how it's scored. So they've given me a decent enough score for that, but it wasn't an especially strong showing even still. Out of 100, I got 22, 29, 33, 43. So I still haven't hit a 50% of passing grade on any of these yet. And I was right that it was actually ended up being a little more in the 70s, so jumping that back down to 82 was wise. And I did say I didn't think it would go any lower than 75, so that was decently and well enough called, but it is a lower score than I thought and longer than I thought, so there's no getting around that. I just had my guess wrong. I scored even poorlier this time. Another random bout, shall I? Go, thank you. Okay, Batman Arkham Origins. I've heard of this game. The Batman Arkham games, they kind of play a bit like Assassin's Creed. They're like story-driven. You go through a handful of Batman villains, so each one probably has its own arc of about 3 or 4 hours. You fight Poison Ivy now, and then you've taken care of Poison Ivy. You go on to Bane for a bit, and then you go through like 4 or 5 of them, and then you're at the Joker and Harley Quinn, probably. So 4 or 5 Batman villains, maybe an arc of like 4 or 5 hours given to each of them, possibly around 20 hours. There are sometimes some interludes where you play as Catwoman and do other things, so like add a few hours for that, 22. These games are fairly rife with side content, I'm given to understand, so probably doing a bunch of side quests and optional riddles, like Riddler riddles and things, could add an easy 8 hours to it to bring it up to 30. And completionist is probably something even a bit higher, like 48. Batman Arkham Origins. So yeah, the user rating here I think is based on the user rating by How Long to Beat. I don't think it's like taking the Metacritic score or anything. So you could argue that if the people who are likely to be logging times on here are people who are proud of their times, i.e. more competitive players, then more competitive games are likely to score higher in the user rating? Possibly? I don't know of that for a fact, obviously. But the Batman Arkham games, I don't think anyone like despises them. Or maybe not that no one despises them, but I don't think many people despise them. I think I would have probably said it would score similarly to Evil Within, actually. But Evil Within scored lower than I was expecting. I mean, I'm pretty optimistic with scoring, I guess, because I think it takes a lot for me to get me to say a game is bad. But the Arkham games, I mean, they made a bunch, and people really seemed to like them. So I feel like I heard that some of the later ones, the writing wasn't quite as strong as some people thought. And Origins is possibly one of the later ones. I always forget. The titles, they're all Arkham something, and I always forget which order they go in. Is it like City Asylum Night Origins, which would make this one of the later ones, or City Asylum Origins Night something? Arkham... Oh, maybe Arkham Knight's the first one. I don't know. Let's stop pretending that I remember this, because I never do. Yeah, I've already forgotten about the time now, and I'm just worried about the user rating. I was supposed to be guessing how long it takes to beat these games, but this is the one that's tripping me up the most. I guess a 78 isn't that unsafe. There's no way it's higher than an 89 or lower than a 70, right? It's somewhere from 70 to 89. So if I just go in the middle to hedge my bets, and I would say more liked than disliked. So I would imagine it's, again, like no lower than 78, but like it's hard to imagine it much higher than like 85? I'll go 79 about it. How? And here we find that everyone hated this game and it was like 43. Okay, so I was wrong again. Not quite as well liked as I had imagined, but still not terribly far off in terms of the score. So I was wrong. The actual main story does not take nearly as long as I imagined. It's probably more like there are 4 Batman villains, each of which takes about 3 hours to handle. But I was quite closer on the side content and stuff, this is what I sort of thought, was that the main game does not take terribly long, but if you're doing the side content, you're no more than doubling the length, and in this case, almost quadrupling it. So I was reasonably close on the completionist ranking. Not awfully far off on the main sides, but I almost doubled the time of the main story. Oh, my worst showing? We could bring it up to an overall 150 out of 300 if I just get these next few real right. Homefront the Revolution. God, that could be anything. It could be another one of them hydrophobias where it's like a 7-hour game that kind of came and went. Or it could be like a super long multiplayer game that has like an exorbitantly long multiplayer campaign. It just says shooter. It doesn't say anything like about massive multiplayer or anything like that. And it very much has the look of something that's going for a short cinematic bout. So again, 7 hours feels like a fairly reasonable... The sort of gritty look of it almost gives it the vibe of something that's going for like being really difficult. So maybe it would take you a little longer than that to complete it. Again, I'm not getting the sense that it's something that has a lot of extra side content. Maybe a few collectibles you could go for and then like play it again in a harder mode if you're going for 100%. Doesn't look like the sort of thing that would probably be well liked, because I've never heard of it, and it looks a bit... I'm sorry if this is a game that anyone really likes, but it looks, just at a glance, which is all I have to work from here, it looks like a bit edgy and try-hard. I don't really get what's with the, like, industrial contemporary setting and then the cowboy guy, but maybe that's part of it. So I would say it looks like the kind of game that would be liked in the 60s. Maybe I'm wrong and this is a sleeper hit that's like in the 80s? Let's hear it, though. Okay, I was not far off with my guesses at all here. I fairly well clocked this. I was 1 hour off on the estimate of how long it takes to beat the main story. I'm glad I bumped that up a bit, because I was like, if it looks a bit like it's going to be trying to be edgy and difficult, so it probably takes a little longer than 9 hours to beat. There was more side content than I had imagined, though, apparently. I was thinking maybe an unlockable difficulty that would take you another 9 hours to beat or so, but they've got apparently 7 hours of main plus sides, and then a 20-hour increase if you're going for 100%. So I wonder what's up with that. Maybe there's some like really difficult achievements in there. But I was correct that it was not super well liked. I even again highballed it a bit. But hey, not a bad round. If I can get 42, we can get a nice sweet 50%, which would be the best I've scored today. Oh, damn. SteamWorld Quest Hand of Gilgamesh. Is that in the same series as SteamWorld Dig? It almost could be, but then, I don't know, it doesn't look a lot like it. Adventure card game role-playing. Oh, that could be any length. It could be a cute little, like, 7-hour indie thing, or it could be something like Hearthstone that has, like, 8 billion campaigns, I think, not having played Hearthstone. God damn. Well, card game plus role-playing, you'd expect it to take some time, right? You're not, like, blitzing through a role-playing card game. Surely not, right? I mean, then again, something like Inscription is probably not that long, right? Not that it's a role-playing adventure game exactly, but I mean, card games by their nature take lots of thinking and stuff, and role-playing games tend to as well, how you're building your characters and how you're setting up a deck in the card game. It's gotta have some heft to it, but I just don't have a sense of, is there lots of side content? Well, I say that, I obviously haven't put a number for main story yet. I'm thinking like, probably no fewer than 25 hours. My heart says 30. Around 30. I doubt it's more than 50 based on the look of it. I will say, I mean, the character designs are kind of neat, but it does have the look of a bit of a generic sort of thing. I don't want to use the word shovelware, because I'm sure some people worked very hard on this, and I'm sure some people very much like this game. But it does look a little bit like I have seen this game before, without having seen this game before, if you catch my drift. So I'm kind of moving forward to the user rating and then trying to somehow see if I can extrapolate the hours from that, and then I'm not succeeding. So let me just go 32, because I always underestimate how long these RPGs are, and so now is the thing, do I think there's a lot of side content? Possibly. If it's adventure, that sounds like you're going around a world, in which case there are probably like quests and things to pick up. So I mean, if it's an RPG, there's probably a lot of quests and things to pick up. So like a 41 for this and a 62 for this, just pumping a whole extra 30 hours for that. I've got a bad feeling I'm really highballing the playtime if it is like an indie thing. It might be something that's actually like a very well-designed and tight-knit experience. But again, I'm thinking it has the sort of like a spin-off-y, not main series material kind of feel to it. So I'm thinking almost certainly no higher than an 80. Oh, I'm going to feel so dumb if I'm wrong about this. But that's what my instinct says, no higher than an 80, possibly in the high 60s, but probably closer to a low 70, like a 72. This is like the least confident I've been in any of the things we've said today, but hey, if I'm somewhere close, we could get a decent score here. I mean, I just have no idea what this thing is that I'm looking at here, really, is the trick of it. I don't have a feel for this set of genres, really. I don't have a feel for this series. The only thing I think I'm getting about this series is that it's possibly related to SteamWorld Dig, which would make this kind of a spin-off that has nothing to do with it, which would make it kind of a random addition. The characters don't look especially SteamWorld Dig-ish. Like, they look like steam-driven robots, like in SteamWorld Dig, but the setting is obviously more fantasy than Wild West. Ah! Oof! Okay. I doubled all the playtimes, but I was pretty bang on about the user rating. Unfortunate that we did not get our 50%, but I really was flying blind with the time, so I'm happy enough that I just got one category correct, but I was way off on these. I did almost like perfectly double each of the categories. 32 over 15, 41 over 20, 62 over 27. So I had a sense of how it stretches, but just not what the actual length was. Well, it's not our worst score. Actually, that's possibly our best score today, even still. I'm sure I can get at least a 200 sometime today, right? Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Pandora tomorrow. Splinter Cell. Stealth game. Something of the length of a Metal Gear or a Hitman, right? Those games aren't terribly long. You have like, what, 10 to 12 missions to do, each of which could theoretically be completed in 40 minutes to an hour, depending on how good you are. 12 hours for a 2004 stealth game? That's not terribly unreasonable. Maybe even a little less, because Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell I think of as being kind of like Metal Gear, like it was considered sort of revolutionary, right? And so if you're creating something revolutionary, can't make it that long if you were like creating revolutionary technologies and AI developments and stuff. But 12 hours does feel about right. It's kind of hard to imagine it being like completable in fewer than 10. Oh, that 2004, I guess that's possible. I mean, completable is different from main story. Main story, I think, assumes you're watching all the cutscenes and everything. It's not like a speed run. Well, I mean, obviously it's whatever the users inputted, but I think most users aren't gonna like skip the cutscenes all on their first go through and like try and do it as fast as like that's just ridiculous. to then put the time in. If you wanted to submit a fast time, you'd submit it to speedrun.com. So this is like with cutscenes and story and everything. I think a 2004 stealth game, 12 hours isn't unreasonable. And actually, it sounds even a bit low now that I'm saying it. Let's just bring it up by 1 to 13. 15 is what I want to say, but I'm like nervous to stray too far from the 10-hour mark. Plus sides, there's probably not a lot of side content if it's something like Metal Gear or Hitman, which is kind of the vibe I get from the Tom Clancy Splinter Cells. There's not a lot of like, and now do this side quest. It's like, yeah, there's some optional items you can find around if you're exploring the maps and stuff, but main plus sides probably isn't adding loads. And then completionists, sometimes it'll be like, for getting every grade, or like, you know, like getting the highest rank, or playing in the hardest difficulty. This probably could add a full another game's playthrough, possibly. Or maybe there's some like documents you're meant to collect. I could see it adding maybe 8 hours onto this to put it up to 23, and that's like up 10 from this, so it feels right enough. The Splinter Cells are reasonably well received, I tend to think. I have no idea about Pandora Tomorrow particularly, but you have to imagine it's no lower than 70, right? I don't think anyone thinks the Splinter Cell games are like real trashy. They're considered like Sam Fisher and Splinter Cell are considered like stealth icons alongside Agent 47 and Solid Snake, you would think. I would estimate that they're probably, like, Splinter Cell is probably like the least beloved series of those three in terms of like what it does for the stealth genre. But that's possibly my own bias just because it's the one I've not played of those three. Regardless, I'm thinking 2004, possibly they were still ironing out some kinks because this series was still kind of new in this time, right? In fact, Pandora Tomorrow isn't the first one, right? No, surely not. Surely that was in, like, it's possibly like the second or third one. Regardless, I'm thinking like high 70s is where I'm aiming here. I'm thinking probably not like, because stealth games in general, I don't tend to like be outrageous crowd pleasers, I suppose, all the time. I would, you could say there's still a bit of a niche, I suppose, and especially in one from 2004, they tend to have a reputation for being sort of clunky, kind of stalling here. 78. Let's go 77. 78 feels almost a little high. I doubt it's like low 70, like 72 or like in the 60s. I doubt it's in the 80s. I'm thinking it's like 74 to 79 is where it lies, so I'll go somewhere in the middle and say 77. As for the time, again, I don't really have a strong sense of it, but that I feel like there's no way it's like 5 hours, because they've got like narrative and stuff to them. And 5 hours could be for like the cutscenes alone. No, I guess that's more if you're Metal Gear. It's not like 5 hours though, but I doubt it's like 20 hours. Something like this, if it's like missions where you have to design lots of AI. In 2004, designing guard AI for a stealth game. If you have any hope of completing the game, you're not going to be able to put more than like 10 levels in it, right? And still have that AI work. Because you do have to do some... Anyway, this is how I feel. Blah! Okay, pretty solid guessing there. So I did highball it a little on the playtime. I was closer when I just put it right at, I think I did put it at 10 earlier, but I was right that it's not adding a whole lot to do sides and completionist. I highballed completionist a bit on account of assuming that possibly you'd be playing through the game again on a harder difficulty. It does not look like that's the case if you're only adding 3 hours from main plus sides. I was about bang on to the user rating though. This is probably our best singular round today so far. It just took a lot of thunking, but I got close. Let's keep up that pace, shall we? Infamous 2, another game I've heard of. Action open world. It is an open world game, but it's not like, I don't think exorbitantly long. Probably, it gives me like Saints Row vibes. And how long does it take to complete like Saints Row 4, I guess, because that's the one we have superpowers. But how long does it take to beat Saints Row 4? It's like 20 hours? 15, 20? This game very much has the feel like if you're just going from main story thing to main story thing, probably you're going to feel like a bit underpowered. You're not going to have all that many abilities, but like if you're skipping side stuff, but it's not going to take that long. I wouldn't say more than 30 hours. I wouldn't say fewer than 20. I could just go right in the middle, say 25, but 22 somehow feels right. Possibly 24. Main plus sides, if it's an open world game, I have to imagine there's like a decent bit of side content. I didn't get the sense it was something like Assassin's Creed where it like just ejects like 10,000 enemy base camps onto the map the second you're into the open world and is like, go do them, I guess. You know, later Assassin's Creeds are like more like that. But there's probably a good bit to do here. I have a strong sense of Infamous anyway. So I could easily see it adding like 10 hours or even 8, probably closer to like 8 to do like some side stuff on your way to the main story. And if you're going for everything, it's probably a bit more like 52. I mean, open world game, right? An open world game from 2011. This is the point where like the idea of an open world actually feeling big was kind of novel, which is why they then went too far and made him just like so big they couldn't put enough stuff in him to keep it interesting for a while. Not that I'm saying that's how Infamous 2 was, but This was around the time where the shift toward that kind of open world idea was coming. Bigger is better, so let's just do it, and then we'll see if we can figure out what to put in the open world after. And usually the answer was no, so we'll copy-paste the same one thing throughout the open world 50 times. All that to say, though, I feel like this was at the turn where that was starting to become the norm, so perhaps the completionist isn't actually that much longer than main plus sides. I'm going in weird, like, neat intervals here where I've added 8 hours and then 16 hours here. But it does feel about right. No, I feel like it should be a little higher than that for the completionist on an even an open world game from 2011. And I know this game has like a morality system, so probably they want to add a lot of side stuff that lets you shift your morality one way or the other. As for how well like the Infamous games are, there were a few, right? So it's the first few almost certainly were like alright. But I always had the sense that they were not considered, like, outrageous, top-of-the-line, excelled in their field type things. So, like, I've been doing an awful lot of 70s today, but it feels like that can't be far off, like 75. Even possibly a little lower. I don't know how Infamous 2 stacks up within the series at all. Like, whether people were like, oh, it was a huge step down from the first one, or about the same as the first one, or, way better than the first one, improved on it in every way. Again, though, if Batman Arkham, whatever, Origins, got 75 and Evil Within got around that, those are pretty well-liked games, so it's hard to imagine Infamous getting higher than them. It's also hard to imagine it being in the 60s, though, so I think I gotta go with like a 72 again. We'll just call it a 73, because it's Infamous 2. They maybe fix some things from the first one. Oh, holy crap, okay, I way overshot the time. An open world game you can 100% in 24 hours. Oh, I long to go back to those times. And also a pretty poor showing on the user rating. This one got an 81%. People liked Infamous 2 apparently more than The Evil Within and Batman Arkham Origins, which I would not have guessed, but a much tighter and more liked experience than I had surmised. Shows what I know. Oh, look who it is. Danganronpa, another episode, Ultra Despair Girls. Adventure, horror, shooter, survival. I mean, I probably have actually seen what numbers this shows when I've searched up how long the Danganronpa games are before we played them. So they're no fewer than like 24 hours, right? Most of the Danganronpa games on this site clock in. I think even the Ultra Despair Girls has like a similar runtime. Clocks in somewhere around 30 hours on this site. I think it takes a person who's reading it aloud a lot longer than that, but I'll go 33. Main plus sides, I mean, it's one big story experience. I guess I don't know how Ultra Despair Girls, like how different it is. But it's mostly one big story experience with maybe some side stuff. This is probably like adds 4 hours, and then completionist for going back to get good ranks and stuff is like 45, 46. As for user rating, look, far be it from me to know how people feel about this game. I wouldn't have any way to know that. Let's just throw it at a 76 so I don't have to think about it any longer than that, huh? Oh god, okay. Apparently, this is a lot shorter than the main games. I got 1 point for guessing the completionist took 46. Damn, I would have thought, since I've looked up I just did, right? I just searched up how HowLongToBeat said about Danganronpa 2, and so you would think I would have seen this out of my peripheral vision and known that this had a smaller runtime. I guess I probably should have known that, because it's not just a visual novel. Didn't realize it was so poorly liked, though, by the people writ large. Anyway, let's move swiftly on from that. Go one more round of 3, shall we? I've played really awfully today. I definitely did, like, a lot better in any other time. In other times I've played this. Well, I say a lot better. I guess that's probably not true. I've definitely had better rounds. I had a round where I got at least 200 points. Like a round of 3, I mean. But this is probably about my average skill level. I mean, hey, it's what we're seeing right now, so I guess I can't deny the evidence of my eyes. Mini Metro, Simulation Strategy Tactical. I feel like they made an archipelago for this recently, and because I feel like I was just looking at this in the past, like, few months. Like, just this cover art, I don't have any sense of how long the game is. Although, actually, that might help me if it's for an archipelago. You know, there are archipelagos of long games like Persona 5 and Xenoblade X and stuff, but possibly the majority of archipelago games they're trying to pick games you can beat within 20 hours or so that you can do them in a multiplayer archipelago in one day. And a simulation game about, like, managing trains and stuff probably has, like, a handful of levels and things that you go through where it gets more complicated and more snaky with more trains, if I'm understanding what the gameplay is based on the title screen and title and genre. So I can see it being the sort of thing that clearing the main game, assuming you're not playing an archipelago, you have to wait for someone else to unlock your levels or whatever, could happen in, like, 8 hours. Or possibly fewer. I can't get the sense if it's something that would stretch on as long as 15, or if it would be closer to, like, maybe being at, like, half an hour. so I'll just go in the middle and say about 8 hours. It does seem like the sort of thing that probably could have some like side levels that would take you a little longer, and perhaps some like harder, really hard modes and achievements and stuff that would take you even as long as like not 198, but 100, but 19 possibly. It doesn't seem like the kind of thing that would take. I mean, given the sort of minimalist style of the cover art, possibly the game itself is. You know what? I've been doing a lot of highballing lately, haven't I? Let me bring these numbers down even a little. I'll bring it down to 6, 8, and 12. 13. Like that, hey? I feel like this is a game where you could learn the mechanics and get through it, possibly even in one sitting with like going through all these levels. It just gets a lot of like very tactically difficult. Unless it's not like a level-based like simulation thing and it's more like a tycoon type thing, as I would call it, like where you're like trying to run the most efficient money-making metro kind of thing, like Roller Coaster Tycoon or one of them. I don't actually have a sense really of how it plays. Strategy tactical makes me think it's more like levels. You have to find some way to make all the trains run per level, and there's different setups. Anyway, this feels about right, but I doubt it's longer than 15. I doubt it's shorter than like 3 hours. Really, but I would wager it's closer to the low end. Again, I'm sort of basing it on Archipelago. Anyway, I'm stalling while I think of what I think the user rating is. It seems like the kind of thing that's like, they did one thing and they did it right. That's the vibe I get from looking at it here. Since it's shown up here, and I saw it show up as an Archipelago, people probably liked it. So, possibly even as high as just like a flat 80, like it was just a good experience, right? There's no way it's lower than a 60. A tight, like, because I think it's indie, and like an indie game where they picked one thing and focused to it is going to have a lot more quality, concentrated, than a AAA game where they tried to do everything, right? So if someone went and said, I want to make a strategy game with my friends about trains, like, and making them run on time, and then I'm going to put money and time and effort into this, they were going to get it right, okay? At least somewhat. So there's no way it's lower than like a 70. I would assume it's no lower than a 75. Possibly just because it's focusing down one thing. Doesn't have the sort of widespread drama and appeal to get it past like an 85, but I think it's somewhere from 75 to 85. I'm thinking possibly just like 80 even, but it might be like 76, 78, 79. I'm feeling optimistic. I'm just gonna throw an 80 on it. Eek! Okay, I bang on with the main story being 6 hours. How about that, huh? Not bad for a final round. The side stuff adds way more, though. I was way lowballing how much it adds. The sides, I was like kind of on the right track, but completionist, I was way on the wrong track. It almost like octuples the playtime. Pretty cool, and I was right that it's not below 70, but I was wrong that it's between 75 and 85. It was not quite that well received as I had imagined, but that feels pretty good. I'm glad I knocked it down from whatever I had it at, like 10 hours, 12 hours. But I did have it wrong how much the side content fleshed it out, which I guess makes sense, probably. I mean, not that I had anyway, knowing, but I can picture that now, that like the main mission box, or whatever you want to call it, is like 20 well-designed missions, but then they have like 800 optional missions that you don't have to do or whatever. But hey, 55, not bad. And now I get to be completely off because another Lost Phone lore story. 2017 puzzle. It's giving the vibes of something like What Remains of Edith Finch, or like Life is Strange, that kind of thing. Like it's maybe sort of a mystery aspect to it, and it's sort of a narrative and condensed thing with some puzzles that go on in and around it. I'm thinking it has the feel of indie. It's hard to imagine a AAA developer being like, I like that title. A AAA developer would be like, no, it's gotta be like Lost Legends of Laura. Another Lost Phone lore story has a very tempered indie feel to it. Like they weren't answering to a shareholder when they came up with that, huh? I do have to go in a little bit, so I'm trying to like speed this up a little for these last 2 rounds, so I don't want to like take terribly long. It feels like, if it's something like Edith Finch, that's like 4 hours long, right? Not long. Puzzle. Like it looks like a tight-knit story about someone's disappearance or something, right? It could even be like 1 hour. I'm honestly feeling pretty low ball, like 3 hours possibly to complete this game. If it says puzzle, there are probably like a few puzzle things, because Edith Finch isn't really a puzzle game, right? It's like a story-rich, atmospheric thing. But if it's a puzzle game, you're gonna want some time to sit with those puzzles, right? It does not look like there's an awful lot of side content, maybe a handful of collectibles, so I'm thinking like adds 1 hour, adds 2 hours. And it looks like the sort of thing like Edith Finch that would be like, the people who played it were like, oh yeah, that had like an emotionally affecting thing. Although I wouldn't say Oh, anyway, that's it. I was going to say, I didn't find Edith Finch like totally life-changing, but I did like it, and thought it was a well-told story. But what I'm trying to talk about people, not just me, here. And I feel like this is the kind of thing that could, again, we've been having a lot of mid-70s, but this is the kind of thing that is like, some people thought it didn't do enough. The people who played it probably liked it enough. 75, right? I doubt it's like so aboard. If it was something, again, it has the feel of indie, that there was a concerted and concentrated effort into making it a short and quality experience. It can't have been like dreadful. Possibly high 60s if it wasn't, you know, terribly well executed, but no lower than that. And I would think probably not quite as high as like an 82, but maybe early 80s, but I think more than likely like 74. See, okay, yeah, I way highballed it an hour long. And when you get this low, the margin of error is really important. Bugger. High 60s there. Okay, yeah. That all makes sense. Damn. I should have gone with my gut when I said 3. Yeah, there's no way there's a completionist run of this game. I don't know why I added 3 hours for the completionist. I was at most adding like 20 minutes to get like the last few collectibles or whatever. Shucks. Yeah, that was on me. I should have, from the look of this, it's a very short and narrative-driven thing. Using Edith Finch as the guidepost, I should have put it lower, but I was trying to hedge my bets because I thought if it was 2 hours versus if it was 8 hours, 5 was better, but let's just pull it back to the last one, shall we? Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 4. Trails of Cold Steel is a long-ass RPG, right? No shorter than 35 hours. I would probably guess it's closer to 40. Main plus sides, it's got, I'm speeding up a little bit because I'm running out of time, but I feel like it's gotta be like main plus sides adds a good 7 hours, and then if you're going for completionist, it's like 70 hours, right? Trails of Cold Steel, long-ass RPG, surely. As for how well it's liked, so I feel somewhat confident in this. I doubt it's lower than 35 hours. I doubt it's much more than 60 hours the main story. This will probably be alright. You know, this could probably go up a little more, like 51. And then 72. But as for the rating, I don't have a sense of how well people like Trails of Cold Steel. They're liked, right? And they've gone on, they went on long enough for Trails of Cold Steel 4. And I think possibly a few beyond that. I don't feel like they have the same kind of like, you mention their name and everyone trembles in the way like Tower of Mana or Xenogears does, right? Where it's like, oh, that's a must play. Chrono Trigger, must play. Final Fantasy VI, must play. But I feel like Trails of Cold Steel is like, people are like, yeah, Trails of Cold Steel's fun. Good characters, good world, stuff like that. I've never played one, but that's the vibe I get. So should we go mid-70s? Although I feel like they're usually considered decent quality, so an 80 could even be possible, but I'm thinking more than likely like 78 or 76. I'm gonna go 76 in case I'm overestimating it and people actually are a little more like, it's alright, 72. I doubt it's in the 60s though, but I feel reasonably good about this. Okay, so I did, in fact, lowball the time because it's an RPG, and of course I did. Oh, damn! 84! I also lowballed how well it's liked. Okay, damn, don't underestimate Trails of Cold Steel, apparently. Yeah, you know what? I should have clocked from 2018 that it would be bloody long, actually. I was thinking, I guess Trails of Cold Steel, I sort of think of that as like when did the first one come out? I think of it as like a 2008, mid-2010s, or early 2010s thing, but I had the actual release date there, so I should have just looked at it. Oh yeah, there you go. The first one's 2013. Oh, but the Trails series itself was earlier 2000s. Okay, that's probably what I'm thinking of. I didn't realize it was like a distinct side series. So I said I didn't think it was any more than 60 hours. So given it's an JRPG, I probably should have leaned on the high end there. That would have gotten me pretty close. I didn't expect it to add quite that much side content, though. I was thinking, like, sure, lots of side quests. This kind of RPG is known for that. So, sure, I could see it adding, like, 30 hours. So I was lowballing it, but I wouldn't have expected, like, 43 hours of side content before you're going for 100%. Nor did I get the sense that people liked it as much as an 84. I mean, the idea that it's liked more than Batman Arkham or Evil Within sort of somewhat surprises me, but hey, I could have done a whole lot worse anyway, I suppose. There certainly were like 3 rounds in here somewhere where if you had taken those 3 rounds as one game, I would have probably cleared 200, as I have done once before. But as it stands, here was our performance in the random games. I was getting better each time. Oh no, not quite. Sorry, this is ranked by, oh no, I'm totally wrong about that. Our best ranking was the second one I did. it's an overall upward trend a little bit, I guess. But there you go, the How Long to Beat random challenge. If we played it a few times, I would totally love to come back and do some more of this. In part because I'd like to redeem myself a bit. This was not a very well played set of rounds, but hey, we learned a lot, did we not? The next video on the channel is going to be some more Persona 3 Portable, though, which, as everyone knows, takes 64.5 hours to beat, so we'll look forward to that. Thank you so very much for coming around. Hopefully I'll see you around. Admiral's gonna be out of here now. Peace!